Hey everyone, it's Luis from Doxia Studio, and I'm here to show you how to improve your visual effects with nice techniques using Unity's shader graph. In this second part of the Fire Orb tutorial, we are going to improve our visual feedback from our previous tutorial. We will add a counter and depth effect to show the limits of our visual effect, give a bit of opacity in the center so the player can see what is happening inside the skill, and add a little of distortion. All done using Unity's shader graph. Hope you enjoyed this advanced tutorial, and as you may know, all my content is available on my Patreon page, so if you want to download the assets and follow along, you know where to look. So now let's jump into the tutorial and have some fun. Hello, so let's start our tutorial. So this is our final goal. As you can see, this skill effect has more effects than the previous one, right? So you can see what is inside. You can know the limits of your skill. So with a little bit of Fresnel, you can see the bounds of your skill effect. That's really important. And you can see what is inside, and you have a little distortion that gives a really cool feedback. So let me show you the difference. So this is the previous one. We created this on the previous tutorial. And as you can see, it's a cool effect, but it doesn't give you a lot of feedback. And for a game, it's better that sometimes you dial down the effects and the overall effects and give more a professional look. So here you can see side by side the difference. And the second one, the one on the right that we are going to explore, gives you more visual feedback than the previous one. Okay. And as you can see, this skill effect works as for first-person shooters, for example, when you have a front camera. It works on isometric games. And even on the top games, like a strategy game, it works. But on this case, you need to rework the rings because it gives a lot of more visual feedback that can be bad for your game. Because right now, it looks like the effect affects everything, like the rings too. And it's just the orb size, okay? But it can still work, and it's up to you to redone the rings. Just dial this down, scale them, or anything. So let's see how we created this. So here on this effect, let me press restart. Instead of using multiple spheres like we did on the previous one, right now we are going to adapt our shader graph to use only one sphere and multiple textures. And it is using Fresnel, depth, and Fresnel again for the opacity, and then the distortion method. We are going to explore how we can create that in a single shader graph. As you can see, we are going to create this one. Here is pretty simple. This is the colors and tiling. Here on the side, below, is Fresnel and depth. The opacity center, how we can give opacity on the middle, and then the distortion. Okay. As you can see, the distortion has a really cool touch because it's not distorting like overall or randomly. It is using the textures, the firing texture to distort, and it gives you a really immersive feedback on your visual effect. So let's create this. Let me go to the previous tutorial, go to tutorials making. Control C on this one, and then let's paste this. As you know, all these assets are available on my Patreon if you want just to download them and use in your games, or see just how I created everything. So this tutorial to making a shader graph, it's the previous one that we did early, okay? So what we are going to do is create this into a subgraph, so we can have everything organized like this and be able to use 3 textures on the same material. So let's see how I did this. It's pretty simple, to be honest. Just select everything except the color, okay? Right click, right right click. It has to be not on the group, on the node. Convert to subgraph. And let's go tiling texture subgraph. And this will convert everything into a single subgraph. Let me delete this group so it will be easier. So right now, these inputs are kind of a mess, and I want to edit a few things. Just double click on this subgraph and it will open your subgraph. And here I want to organize here. So I want use alpha to be the last one. Okay, main texture, tiling, offset, use red. Okay, that's cool. And here on the output, I want to call it alt alpha because, oops, alt alpha and press enter. Because we want to know that, let's save the asset. Let's go back here. It's way better to be like this and organized. Okay, and the other thing that we want is this color. Okay, let's call it color. Okay, there, it's okay with color. So right now we want to, it is using only one texture. So we need to duplicate this into 2 more textures and combine everything. How we do that? So first of all, let's go here, create a category. Let's go with texture 1 and put everything here. Offset, tiling, use red, use green, use blue, and use alpha. So right now these inputs are all under texture, okay? And we can duplicate this, call it texture 2, press enter, and oops, put everything here. Color, go here, offset, speed, tiling. We go down, use red, use green, use blue. This is the boring part. So now let's organize everything. Now, because this tiling texture subgraph is a subgraph, you can press space and write tiling texture subgraph. I'm using the previous one, so let's go with again tiling texture subgraph. And here is the one that we are using here. Okay, so now just link everything. Sorry, the offset. You have to link this correctly. Don't be stupid as me. Tiling, use red, use green, use blue, and use alpha. Okay, so now we have this alpha one. So what you can do is you can come here and link the texture that we already got. The color, let's give a different color so we can see what we are doing. And same here, let's go to color and give a yellow one. Okay. Right now, this one is using the red one. And on this one, just to debug it, let's use the green one so you can see it's different. Okay. And how do we combine both of them? It's pretty easy. So what we do is we are just adding colors. Okay. So let's press space. Let's put add. And for example, on the alpha, you can come here. Let's link this here and this here. And you can see it's adding both of alphas. If you want, this is up to you. You can use multiply, but it will give you more contrast, and sometimes it will block everything. Okay, it's a different blend. Okay, because the black ones will get eliminate or negate the white spots on the previous one. So the add will combine, like where is white, it will be white, and so on. And the colors, we will do the same. So let's put add. Go here, here, and the colors. Let's add this here and this here. Okay, so right now we can't see everything. So let's use a multiply. Because when you are combining colors, it's good to combine with the alpha channel already. So what we are going to do is a little trick. So we are going here and here. So we are applying the color to our, let me delete this, to our, we have the color and we are multiplying the alpha channel. Okay, so we have this texture and let's do the same here, multiply. And you can see the difference, and now add these last ones. So as you can see, we are adding it correctly. It's way better to do this multiply before. Okay, so you can see the final step. And so we have 2 textures. Now we need the third one, because we know that for our material or for our effect, we need three. So let's do the same. So now to combine, this is the little trick. You can combine now these into the second one. Okay, you need to use the final adds here. So let's do the same. So for the add color, oops, let's link this here and here. Okay, pretty cool. And let's use the add for the alpha. Oops, sorry. Okay, that's cool. Now we can use these on our final one. So let's go and use the color as base color and the alpha as the alpha. So right now, as you can see, we have everything. Let's save the asset. Let's come here. Let's bring up the fire orb from the previous one. Let's go move this to the side. And here, let's unpack, restart the particles. And for example, here, I just want one sphere. Okay, let's bring this up and let's turn off everything for now, the additive effects, because we are only working on this one. Okay, on this one, we want to use now the material using this shader graph. So right click on that shader graph, create material, and let's go with fire orb matte. Let's go fire orb sapphire matte. Okay, pretty cool. If you don't want to right click on your shader graph to create material, you can come here, create material, test matte, just to explain to you. You can come here on shader, click here and look for your shader graph. We know that our is called tutorial 2 making, and now it is using the same thing. Okay, the shader graph. Let's delete this, and here let's drag this into the sphere. So now it is using our material. So let's offset this. Let's go with 0.5 here, 0.3 and 0.1. Okay, pretty cool. Now let's change the colors. Let's go here more orange, and this one we know that we want red, and here we want a little bit of glow. That's pretty cool. But here I want to use the green, I want to use blue, and I want to use the alpha channel. Okay, and now let's just I think it's like 2 and 2 here, 3 3, and let's go 2 and 2. I've already covered these on the previous one, so I'm not really into that on this one. Okay, that's pretty cool. And we can even like come here, let me see, 2 and 5, 1 and 2, and 1 and 1. Okay, let's go 2 and 5, 1 and 2, and 1 and 1. Okay, Now we are more close to what we did before. So that's a cool one. Another thing that we did on the previous tutorial is that our shader graph, let's click, it's using graph settings, it's using both render face, and we just want to use the front one to have a better looking on our scale effect, because we were rendering the back face of that sphere, so we are getting a little bit of, they are not bugs, it's just a visual feedback that we don't want. When you want to render a back face, it's better to have a different shader graph, a different material, because you want to give different colors for the back face of your animation. So that's pretty cool. That's what we want. Another thing that I came across is that, for example, imagine that you want to turn off this texture too. There's no way that you can turn off this. Even if you come here to the alpha and delete, let's go with everyone. I'm deleting the textures and it's not working because we are just using the base color of it. We are not using the alpha of those colors. So we need to correct that. So on the tutorial to making shader graph, let's use the alpha of this one. Okay. So let's come here. Let's split this. So now with the alpha, we can control this. So let's again create a multiply the color with the alpha, and then use this on the add node and do the same for the other textures. So let's go multiply. Okay, so now let's save the asset. And as you can see now, we can turn off the colors. As you can see, now if I turn off the alpha, you can go and see again this. You could use a Boolean if you want, but I think this way is just, we already have the, the colors there. So that's a cool thing because you can dial down, for example, here on the yellow one that is super strong, you can dial down this a bit, for example. Okay, so now for the cool things, let's go and test the Fresnel. Okay, so for the Fresnel, this is pretty simple. So let's group these. Okay, let's Control G and let's go with color and tiling main texture. It would be cool to collapse this, but it's not possible. For the Fresnel, let's go, and the Fresnel is super easy. So let's go out this and create a category and call it Fresnel and depth because it will be on the same one. And let's go with the float and let's call it Fresnel power. And let's go with the color. Let's go with the Fresnel color. And this color we want to be HDRR, and let's go with the yellow for now with alpha and 1. Okay, cool. So for the Fresnel, it's pretty simple. You just press space and Fresnel effect, and here you cut. And here on the power, just link this one here. Okay, and now let's multiply that Fresnel with our color. Okay, pretty cool. And now just link this to the base color. We are just debugging if the Fresnel is working or not. So save asset, let's go back. And here you can see the Fresnel. Let's go add. You can see that you can have a really cool Fresnel showing the boundaries of your effect. Okay, that's really important. When you have like a fast-paced game, it's really important to show the limits of your skill. So the players will instantly know the limits of your effect or your skill and know where the damage will be taken. Okay, that's really important. And here the color, as you know, it will control the color, for example. And the power, you can limit a lot. You can, like, if you go to 0, you don't have anything, and something like that. Okay, that's pretty cool. And the Fresnel, as you know, it will work. It's a reflection property. You can see on water, glasses, transparent materials. So it will, like, if it is the surface, if it is perpendicular to the camera, it will show the material. If it is quite on the direction of your visual camera, it will be opaque or transparent. So right now it's cool, you can see the boundaries, but if you move your object, right, or the enemies inside, you quite don't understand if the object or the creature is passing through the barrier of your skill, right? And that is what where the depth effect come into play, because you can see if the game object is passing through the or not. I could show here on this one, but you have so many effects that you can't really see that clearly. But you can see here, you got a little bit of glow effect here. You can see here on the boundaries, you can see that the neck is crossing the sphere. And here you don't really understand that. So let's do that on our shader graph. It's quite easy, okay? Okay, let's create a depth effect, and it's going to combine with our Fresnel. Okay, so I've created a depth offset float, okay, with 0.1, just simple. So I can explain better what we are doing. So for this one, we need the screen position, okay. So we know where our effect is, and the mode we need to be raw, okay. We need to split this to use the alpha channel. And for this effect, we need the synth depth. And the sampling, we need to use the eye, because it depends where we are looking, depending on the camera or the game view. Okay, that's really important. And now we are going to use the depth offset. This will control how much depth we want on our effect. So let's subtract. Let's subtract our alpha with our depth offset, and then subtract our scene depth with our previous subtract using the screen position and the depth offset. Okay, we need to invert this. Let's go with 1 minus. Okay, we are inverting this. And now what we need is to add, let's move this, let me delete this part. We need to add this depth offset to the Fresnel effect. So it's the same that we did here with the alphas, okay? So let's go with the Fresnel and here with the depth effect. So here, if I link this to the alpha and go with the Fresnel color to our base color, save asset, let's go to scene. And as you can see, something is happening. That's pretty cool. And here, let's decrease this and increase the depth. That's pretty cool. But right now, we are getting some visual feedback. It's showing the depth, but it's not limiting everything. So we want to, like, in Houdini, we call it clamp. Here, we are going to call it smooth step. We need to smooth step that alpha channel from our depth. Okay, so here what we need to do is on 1 minus, let's call it smooth step. Smooth step. I keep pressing tab because I work in Houdini. And here on the int, as you can see, we can like smooth step between the black and white. We use the 1 minus here and link this to this. Okay. Scene, and right now we are limiting that alpha values between 0 and 1. Okay, that's really important to limit your effect. And as you can see, we can now change the depth. So let's leave it at 0.7. Let's put our rhino on the side. And as you can see, we are starting to get feedback, like our Rhino is crossing the boundaries of that sphere. And you can come here, and if you want, you can decrease this or increase. That's pretty cool, right? So with this little effect, you can get the Fresnel to get the boundaries. Let's increase this even more. And you can get the depth effect. And it's using the same color. So you can play with this to get really nice boundaries. So right now, let's combine everything together, right? And let's go here and combine that color with our previous color and the alpha with this alpha, right? Same step as we did. Let me just organize this. So let's go here and link this, Control G and Fresnel and depth. Okay. And here you can know the two outputs that we need. If you want, you can convert this to a subgraph if you want. So now let's go with add for our base color. And let's go with add for our alpha. It looks like it will break, right? So let's save the asset. Now, as you can see, it's blowing everything up. And I did one mistake here. It's that we need to multiply that color with our alpha, okay? Because we want that color to be only being applied on that. So now, as you can see, it's the same principle that we did here with the colors, right? Multiplying with the alpha, so we can get that, because when we are combining the colors, if you don't multiply by the alpha, you get that explosion of colors, right? And we don't want that. So let's go here. So here is the color and the alpha that we need. This is the final output. So right now, as you can see, we can play here and it's not affecting the other things. Okay, that's pretty cool. And if our object or creature cross the barrier or the skill, you get the feedback. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, what we are missing is the offset or the opacity on the center, right? And that's pretty easy to do. We are going to use the Fresnel for that, and we are multiplying that alpha overall. Okay, because as you can see, we can't really see the the middle, right? That's pretty boring for our game. Okay, so for the opacity, we are going to use the Fresnel, and we are going to use the counterweight, 3 floats, right? Counterweight, center opacity, so sometimes we don't want to be fully opacity on the middle. And the center opacity power we are going to use on the LERP, and you will see how it works in a bit. So as I said, we are going to use the Fresnel. Okay, so we can always know the center. And here, let's link this to a smooth step. Let's put the first edge to 0, and the counterweight, it's like the stroke of our Fresnel. Let's go here and put the counterweight default to 0.5, so we can start seeing what we are doing. Here, let's go with 1, and here 0.5. So we can see here on the preview what we are doing. So the counterweight, as you can see, it will control that stroke. Let's call it stroke. Let's LERP this. Oops, into the A, not T. Okay, and here on the B, and as you can see the LERP, if we change the T, it will change between the first input and the second input. Okay, called A, B, and time. Okay, and you use this on the script. So if the center opacity is full, you can see that we are not doing any opacity. So let's go with center opacity here on B and center opacity like this. Okay, so now let's use this on the final alpha here. Okay, because we want to overwrite this opacity with the final one. So how we do that? Just multiply. So this one will be on top of this, and then use this on the alpha. So let's save our asset. And let me just turn off. Now the alpha will come into play. So as you can see, we got that. And let's put this to 0. So as you can see, we are controlling, and counterweight is way too big. Let's go with 0.5. And center opacity, let's go with 0.25. Maybe center opacity is way too big. Let's go with 0. And as you can see, it's fully transparent in the middle, and you can control something like that. You can see this nice bubble. And if we go to 0.5, and as you can see, by changing the contour or the stroke, we are changing the size of that sphere in the middle. Let's go with something like that. And here we don't want to full transparent, something like 0.1. You can see a little bit there, 0.25. That's cool. Let's dial this down, something like that. That's cool. And even we try to get a really nice shape. And let's increase everything so we can see much better what we are doing. Something like that. That's cool. I think that's really cool. So let's, okay, something like that. You can see the effect. Maybe the contour needs to be bigger. So something like that. So you can see the middle a little bit better. You can see the creatures inside your effect. You can still see a bit of your effect, but not overkill that you can see inside. Okay, that is the opacity center. And now we are just missing that final touch with the distortion, right? And we want the distortion to follow up the texture, right? So let's play with that now. So for the distortion effect, we are just going to use one float, the distort strength, with 0.1 at default. And for this to work, we need two major nodes. The scene color. Let's go and scene color. And this is going to grab what your camera is seeing. And we are going to change these UVs. Okay. So what we need is screen position. And we are going to change this screen position and link to the UVs. And for that, we are going to use the first and the second texture. If you want to use the third, it's up to you. But on our effect, we know the third texture is the overall red on our effect. So we just want to use the first and the second texture. So for that, we are going to use a lerp node. Lerp. And we are going to link that alpha to our second input. And as you know, the time input, it's going to change between 0, the black one, and if you put 1 here, 1, it's going to use fully the second input. That is what the distort strength will do, is going to play between 0 or 1. Then just go here and press add, put an add node. We are going to use that texture to affect our UVs, and then link here. If you want this to see this in action, let's come here and let's do it this alpha. Okay, let's save the asset and let's see the distortion working. That's pretty cool. So now I'm using 0.01. If you go with 0.1, you can see it works with really high values. So let's go with 0.01. So it's a subtle distortion. Okay, so let's combine everything, okay, with our colors and our alpha. So let's go here and let's go put an add node, and we want to use our final color. Let's add our distortion. Let's go here. And our final alpha, let's link here. Okay, let's save it. And let's see how now, as you can see, I did a mistake, because as you know, our alpha, our center opacity, is killing almost everything in the center. So we need to add that scene color, that alpha, to our previous one. So let's grab and add. Let's add this here and this here. And now this should work. And voila. Now we got our overall alpha, okay, our overall distortion, sorry, working, everything even in the middle. We have our colors and you can see what is inside. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now we can turn on all the effects and see them working. That's pretty cool. And now we got a really nice effect. One thing that I'm checking is that I dialed down this glow, or the smoke, not the smoke, but one of these glows. Okay, let's turn off for now, so we can see a little bit better what is inside. What I did is just, you can come here to the emission and dial down this quite a bit. Let's go with like 10. And the opacity, let's change this even lower. Okay, that's pretty cool. So this is our final effect. Here we have more reddish colors, but as you can see, if we move our rhino, you can still see when it's crossing the barrier. Okay. Because of the depth, we have the Fresnel to show the counter with a nice glow. And then we have that distort that you can see here on the rhino. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope it's not that complicated. Let me just come here and do Ctrl G and call it distort. Okay, so overall what we did is quite simple. We created the previous one into a subgraph, combined all the three textures. We created the Fresnel and depth, the opacity center, so we can see what is in the middle. We did the distortion, just changing some UVs and the scene color, combine everything and use that on base color and alpha. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope it's not that complicated, but with this little knowledge, you can upgrade your skill effects and be more professional looking. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye bye.